We received this experience 4 days ago. What is revealed, what is set to happen, is entirely different from anything you have ever heard before. If you can stay with us for just a few minutes through this experience, I can assure you that you will not regret it, because the signs showing that these things are about to happen very soon are already unfolding. Kindly tell us where you are watching from so that we can connect with you. If you desire prayer, please leave your prayer request in the comments, and our prayer team will pray for you. I will now begin sharing today's experience. My name is Lieutenant Chen Wei, and I serve in the People's Liberation Army, stationed in the northeastern region near the border. What I am about to share with you will sound impossible to many, but I speak only truth. There are things happening in the background right now, movements of equipment, changes in protocol, strategic repositioning, that only those of us in uniform can fully understand. The signs are everywhere for those with eyes to see. I believe with all my heart that God, in His infinite mercy, has chosen to reveal what is coming so that His people will not be taken unaware. World War III is closer than most people think, closer than many are willing to admit, and what I experienced on January 2nd of this year has convinced me that time is running out. I come from a family that has suffered greatly for the name of Christ. My parents were believers during the hardest times, when faith could cost you everything. They met in an underground church in the 1990s, when gatherings were secret and Bibles were passed hand to hand in the darkness. I grew up knowing the weight of secrecy, the cost of conviction. I have sat in basements and hidden rooms with other believers, singing hymns in whispers, praying with our eyes open, always listening for footsteps in the alley outside. My faith was forged in those shadows, and though I wear this uniform and serve my country, my ultimate allegiance has always been to the kingdom of heaven. But I never expected that this allegiance would lead me to the very threshold of eternity and back again. January 2nd began like any other day at our base. The winter in the northeast is brutal, temperatures dropping to -20 degrees Celsius, winds that cut through even the thickest coat. We had been conducting routine training exercises, but there was nothing routine about the atmosphere. Over the past several months, I had noticed changes. More drills. More urgency. Officers speaking in hushed tones about scenarios and contingencies. Equipment being moved and repositioned. Supplies being stockpiled in quantities that suggested preparation for something far more serious than exercises. That morning, we were scheduled for a cold weather survival training exercise in the mountains about 40 kilometers from base. My unit consisted of 12 men, all experienced soldiers who had been through countless drills. The exercise was meant to test our ability to survive in extreme conditions with minimal supplies. We were dropped off at our starting point just after dawn, the sky a pale gray, the ground covered in snow that crunched beneath our boots. The first few hours went smoothly. We navigated the terrain, set up temporary shelters, practiced fire-starting techniques in the wind. But around midday, the weather turned viciously. What had been a cold but manageable day suddenly became a white-hot blizzard. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The wind howled with a fury that seemed almost personal, as if nature itself had declared war on us. Our commanding officer made the decision to seek shelter immediately. We had passed a series of caves about 2 kilometers back, and we began making our way toward them. The cold was beyond anything I had experienced before. Even with all our gear, I could feel it seeping into my bones. My fingers were numb inside my gloves. My face felt like frozen leather. We reached the caves and took shelter in the largest one. It went back about 20 meters into the mountainside, offering protection from the wind. We set about making a fire, rationing our supplies, settling in to wait out the storm. But something went wrong, something I still do not fully understand. I began to feel strange about 2 hours after we entered the cave. At first, I thought it was just the cold, the exhaustion. But my breathing became labored. My vision started to blur at the edges. One of my fellow soldiers noticed that my lips were turning blue. The last thing I remember clearly was the sensation of falling, of my body becoming impossibly heavy, and then the world went dark. What I did not know then was that carbon monoxide had been building up in the cave from our fire. The ventilation was poor, and the gas was odorless, invisible, deadly. By the time my comrades realized what was happening, I had stopped breathing. My heart had stopped. According to the medical report I would later read, I was clinically dead for approximately 7 minutes before they managed to revive me. But those 7 minutes changed everything. The darkness did not last long. I became aware of myself, but I was no longer in the cave. I was standing in a place that defied description, a vast expanse that seemed to be both indoors and outdoors simultaneously. The light came from everywhere and nowhere, soft but penetrating, revealing everything without creating shadows. I looked down at my hands and saw them clearly, but they seemed more real than they had ever been in life, as if my physical body had been a poor copy of this true form. I felt no fear, only an overwhelming sense of clarity. My mind was sharper than it had ever been. I could think with perfect lucidity, understand connections I had never grasped before. And then I saw it, the vision that would haunt and drive me in equal measure. Before me, the space began to shift and change. I saw images, scenes unfolding like a film but more real than any film could ever be. I saw cities burning. I saw missiles arcing across skies. I saw people running in terror through streets I recognized: Beijing, Shanghai, Seoul, Tokyo, and cities in America and Europe. The destruction was total and absolute. Buildings collapsed. Fires raged unchecked. The sky itself seemed to be burning. But what struck me most were the symbols woven through the vision. I saw a dragon rising from the east, its scales gleaming red. I saw an eagle and a bear locked in combat, tearing at each other with desperate fury. I saw a great star falling from heaven, and when it struck the earth, the whole world shook. The oceans rose. The ground split open. Darkness covered everything. The vision shifted, and I saw people, millions of them, caught unprepared. I saw believers standing in places they should not have been, in cities that had become death traps, in buildings that collapsed around them. I saw families separated, children crying, parents searching desperately. And I felt, deep in my spirit, a grief so profound it seemed to crush me. This was not what God wanted. This suffering could be avoided, at least for some, if they would only listen, only prepare, only understand what was coming. Then, in the midst of this terrible vision, everything stopped. The scenes vanished. The light changed, becoming warmer, more personal. And he was there. I cannot adequately describe what it was like to see Jesus Christ standing before me. Everything I had heard in underground church meetings, every whispered testimony, every song sung in secret, it was all true, and yet it was nothing compared to the reality. His presence was overwhelming but not crushing. He radiated authority that made me want to fall on my face, yet also love that made me want to run into his arms. His eyes held both infinite sorrow and infinite joy, as if he could see every mistake I had ever made and every possibility I could become, and he loved me through all of it. He did not speak with words at first, but I understood him perfectly. The communication was direct, spirit to spirit, clearer than any human language could ever be. He showed me that what I had seen was not certain. It was a warning, a possibility, a path the world was hurtling down but did not have to complete. He showed me that the conflict was coming soon, very soon, triggered by events that were already in motion. He revealed to me that the great powers of the world had already made decisions that would cascade into war, that pride and fear and the lust for power had blinded leaders who should have known better. But he also showed me something that gave me hope. He showed me that his people did not have to be caught in the worst of what was coming, not if they would listen, not if they would prepare, not if they would understand the times and seasons. Then he began to tell me specific things, urgent things, things that I knew I had to remember and share if I was ever given the chance to return. He told me that when the conflict begins, and it will begin suddenly, with little warning that the general public will understand, there are places where believers absolutely must not be. The cities, he showed me, will become death traps in ways that most people cannot imagine. He revealed to me the same truth that the military document I had once read described, that in the first hour of a nuclear event, most people die not from the initial blast but from doing the wrong things in the critical minutes afterward. The cities will concentrate this death. He showed me images of Beijing during the first hour, millions of people running into the streets, clogging the roads, panicking, making every possible mistake. He told me that believers who live in major cities must understand this. Your basements will not save you. Most apartment buildings in our cities have underground parking or storage areas, and when the alert comes, people will flood into these spaces thinking they are safe. But he showed me why they are wrong. These underground spaces have multiple entrances and exits, which means multiple points where fallout can enter. They have ventilation systems that will pull contaminated air inside. They are close to ground level, which means minimal shielding from radiation. And most critically, if there is any structural damage to the building above, these spaces become tombs, trapping hundreds or thousands of people with no way out. He revealed to me that the safest place in a city building is not the basement but an interior room on a middle floor, exactly what military training teaches. A bathroom or closet in the center of a floor, surrounded by other apartments, with mass above and below and on all sides. He showed me that this configuration provides the best shielding from radiation because the material, concrete, furniture, the belongings of other apartments, creates layers of protection that radiation cannot easily penetrate. But then he showed me something that made my heart sink. He revealed that even this knowledge would not save most people in the cities, because the cities themselves are the primary targets. He showed me that Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, all the major population centers, are marked for destruction. The first strikes will hit military installations and government centers, but the secondary strikes will hit economic targets, infrastructure, anything of strategic value. And in modern warfare, that means the cities. He told me that believers in these cities must leave before the conflict begins. Not when the warnings sound, that will be too late. The roads will be clogged within minutes. The trains and airports will be overwhelmed or shut down. The chaos will make escape impossible. He showed me highways packed with abandoned cars, people walking in endless streams toward nowhere, because there is nowhere to go when the disaster is already underway. He told me that the time to leave is now, while there is still peace, while movement is still possible. He said that believers must trust what he is revealing and act on it, even if it seems foolish to those around them, even if it costs them their jobs or their reputations or their comfort. Better to be thought a fool and be alive than to be proved right and be dead. He then showed me the coastline, and my heart broke at what I saw. He revealed that the coastal cities of China, Shanghai, Tianjin, Qingdao, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, will face a double threat. Not only are they targets for direct strikes, but they will also face devastation from the sea itself. He showed me massive waves generated by underwater nuclear detonations, walls of water 50 meters high crashing into the coast, sweeping away everything for kilometers inland. He showed me that this is a deliberate strategy, that those who plan these wars have calculated that destroying coastal cities achieves multiple objectives simultaneously, eliminating economic centers, creating refugee crises, contaminating water supplies, and demoralizing the population. He told me that believers living within 50 kilometers of the coast must move inland. He was specific about this, 50 kilometers, not 30, not 40. He showed me the models and calculations that military planners use, the estimates of how far tsunami effects will reach when combined with storm surges and the destruction of coastal defenses. 50 kilometers provides a margin of safety, though even that is not absolute. He also revealed something about the water itself. He showed me that in the aftermath of coastal strikes, the seawater will be contaminated with radiation for hundreds of kilometers. Fish will die in massive numbers. The ocean currents will spread the contamination. Anyone who drinks the water, eats fish from the sea, or even spends time near the contaminated shore will sicken and die. He showed me images of people, desperate for food, catching fish from the sea and feeding them to their children, not knowing that they were serving death on a plate. He told me that believers must understand this. In the days after the conflict begins, the sea will be poison. Do not trust it. Do not go near it. Do not eat anything that comes from it. The contamination will persist for years, decades even. The ocean will become a graveyard. Then he showed me something that cut particularly close to my own situation. He revealed that areas near military installations, bases, command centers, missile sites, and strategic facilities will be among the first targets struck. This is obvious to anyone with military knowledge, but he showed me the extent of it, not just the major bases but also the secondary facilities, the satellite installations, the hidden command posts that most civilians do not even know exist. He told me that believers who work in these facilities or live near them face a terrible choice. Many, like me, serve in uniform. Many have families who live on or near military bases. He showed me that when the conflict begins, these locations will be hit within the first minutes, possibly within the first seconds. There will be no warning, no time to run, no chance to say goodbye. He revealed to me that believers in this situation must make a decision now, before the crisis comes. He said that he understands the bonds of duty and loyalty, that he is not asking soldiers to betray their oaths or abandon their posts without cause. But he said that there is a higher loyalty, a higher calling, and that when the signs become clear, and he promised that the signs would become clear, those who love him must be willing to step away from positions that place them in the direct path of destruction. He showed me specific indicators to watch for. He told me that when large-scale troop movements begin, when leaves are cancelled without explanation, when families of senior officers are quietly relocated, when emergency protocols shift from exercises to actual readiness, these are the signs that the time has come. He said that when these things converge, believers in uniform must find a way to extract themselves and their families from the danger zones. He also revealed something that troubled me deeply. He showed me that many military installations have underground bunkers and shelters designed to survive nuclear strikes. He showed me that senior commanders and essential personnel will be directed to these facilities when the attack comes. But he revealed that most of these facilities, while they may survive the initial blast, will become tombs for those inside. The ventilation systems will fail. The exits will be blocked. The supplies will run out. And those who thought they were safe will die slowly in the dark, trapped underground with no hope of rescue. He told me that believers must not put their faith in bunkers built by human hands. The only true shelter is in him, and sometimes that means refusing what appears to be safety in order to follow his leading to actual safety. This warning surprised me because it contradicted what I expected. He showed me the vast agricultural regions of central and northern China, the breadbasket areas that feed the nation. I assumed these areas would be safe, far from cities and military targets. But he revealed that this assumption is wrong. He showed me that in the strategy of modern warfare, destroying agricultural capacity is a primary objective. He revealed that strikes will target grain storage facilities, food processing centers, distribution hubs, and even the farmland itself. He showed me why. A nation that cannot feed itself will collapse from within, faster and more completely than any external military pressure could achieve. He revealed images that haunted me: vast fields contaminated with radioactive fallout, crops that look healthy but carry death in every kernel, livestock dying in massive numbers, water supplies poisoned. He showed me people, desperate with hunger, eating contaminated food because the choice is to eat and possibly die later or not eat and definitely die now. He showed me the mathematics of starvation, how it spreads, how it breaks the social order, how it turns neighbor against neighbor. But he also showed me something hopeful. He revealed that there are places within these agricultural regions that will be relatively safer, small towns and villages far from major roads and facilities, places that have their own water sources and local food production. He told me that believers in the cities should consider these places as destinations, not the large agricultural centers but the small, remote communities that have been overlooked by strategic planners. He showed me that these communities will face hardships, there will be shortages, there will be rationing, there will be fear, but they will survive in ways that the cities cannot. He revealed that believers who relocate to these areas before the conflict begins will have a chance not only to survive themselves but to serve as lights in the darkness, to help organize and sustain their communities, to demonstrate the love and provision of God in practical ways. He told me that those who make this move must prepare wisely. They must arrive with skills to contribute: farming knowledge, medical training, mechanical ability, anything useful. They must come with humility, not as refugees demanding help but as members seeking to integrate and serve. And they must come with faith, trusting that He who led them there will sustain them through what comes. This was perhaps the most troubling warning he gave me. He showed me that in the early hours and days of the conflict, authorities will designate certain areas as safe zones or evacuation centers. He revealed that military and civilian leaders, operating from underground command posts, will broadcast instructions telling people to gather at specific locations: stadiums, large buildings, designated shelters. He showed me what will happen at these locations. He revealed that they will become death traps worse than the cities themselves. Thousands or tens of thousands of people will gather in these places, following official instructions, believing they are being saved. But he showed me that these locations will be overwhelmed within hours. There will not be enough food, not enough water, not enough medical supplies. Sanitation will fail. Disease will spread. And because these gathering points will be known to military planners on all sides, some will be targeted deliberately as a way to maximize casualties and break civilian morale. He told me that believers must not follow these instructions. He said that when the authorities broadcast evacuation orders to designated safe zones, his people must resist the urge to comply. He showed me that this will be difficult because it goes against every instinct. Surely the government knows best, surely the authorities are trying to help, surely following official guidance is the right thing to do. But he revealed to me that in this crisis, the official guidance will be wrong. Not necessarily because the authorities are malicious, many of them will genuinely believe they are helping, but because the scale of the disaster will exceed every plan, every protocol, every contingency. The systems will fail. The supplies will be inadequate. The promises will prove empty. He told me that instead of going to these designated zones, believers must shelter in place if they are in safe locations, or travel to small, unremarkable places that will be overlooked. He showed me that the best survival strategy is to be invisible, to be unnoticed, to be in places that do not attract attention or appear on military maps or planning documents. He then showed me the infrastructure of modern life, the electrical grid, the water systems, the internet, the supply chains that keep food in stores and medicine in hospitals. He revealed that all of this will fail within the first few days of the conflict, and that this failure will kill more people than the actual weapons. He showed me cities going dark, not from destruction but from grid collapse. He revealed that the electrical systems of modern nations are fragile, interconnected in ways that make them vulnerable to cascading failures. When key nodes are destroyed, the entire system can collapse like a house of cards. He showed me that when the power goes out, it will not come back on for months, possibly years in some areas. He revealed what this means practically. No lights. No heat in winter. No cooling in summer. No refrigeration, which means food spoils within days. No water pumps, which means taps run dry even if the water system itself is intact. No sewage processing, which means waste backs up and creates health hazards. No communication except for battery-powered radios, and those only until the batteries die. He showed me that believers must prepare for this reality. He told me that those who relocate to safer areas must bring or acquire the means to survive without modern infrastructure. Solar panels and batteries if possible. Hand-pumped wells or access to clean water sources. Stored food that does not require refrigeration. Medical supplies. Tools. Seeds for planting. Warm clothing. Practical items that will mean the difference between life and death when the convenience of modern life is stripped away. But he also told me something that gave me hope. He revealed that this collapse of infrastructure will create opportunities for his people to demonstrate his love in practical ways. Those who are prepared can share with those who are not. Those who have skills can teach others. Communities of believers can become centers of stability and help in a chaotic world. He showed me that this is part of his purpose, not just to save his people from physical death, but to position them to be vessels of his grace when others are desperate and searching. He then showed me in specific detail what the document I had read only hinted at, the timeline of radiation and fallout, and why understanding this timeline is critical to survival. He revealed that when a nuclear weapon detonates, there are 3 distinct phases of danger, each requiring different responses. The first phase is the immediate blast and thermal effects, the explosion itself, the searing heat, the shock wave that destroys buildings and turns windows into deadly projectiles. This phase lasts only seconds, but it determines who lives and who dies in the immediate area. He showed me the second phase, the fallout window. He revealed that after the blast, there is a period of 15 to 45 minutes before the radioactive particles begin falling from the sky in lethal concentrations. He showed me that this is the window when most preventable deaths occur, because people do not understand it. They survive the blast, they think the danger has passed, they emerge from shelter to check on family or survey the damage, and they walk directly into the falling fallout. They breathe it in. It lands on their skin. It contaminates everything they touch. And they receive lethal doses of radiation without realizing it until days later when the sickness begins. He told me that believers must understand this timeline intimately. He said that if you survive the initial blast, you must immediately seal yourself in the best shelter you can find and remain there, completely sealed, for at least 48 hours. Not 24 hours. Not 12 hours. 48 hours minimum, 72 is better, 2 weeks is ideal. He showed me the third phase, the long-term contamination. He revealed that after the initial fallout settles, the radiation will persist in the environment for weeks, months, years, depending on the type of weapons used. He showed me that the first 2 weeks are the most dangerous, as the short-lived but intensely radioactive isotopes decay. After 2 weeks, radiation levels typically drop to about 1% of their initial intensity, which makes brief, necessary movements outside marginally safer. But he warned me not to trust this timeline blindly. He showed me that wind, rain, and human activity can redistribute contamination, creating hot spots of intense radiation in unexpected places. He revealed that water sources can become contaminated long after the initial fallout, as radioactive particles wash into rivers and aquifers. He showed me that food grown in contaminated soil will concentrate radiation in ways that make it deadly even if the soil itself seems only mildly contaminated. He told me that believers must be cautious, must test before trusting, must not assume that time alone makes things safe. He showed me that those who survive the first 2 weeks will face years of living in a contaminated world, and that wisdom and careful decision-making will be essential for long-term survival. Then he showed me something that filled me with both sorrow and strange joy. He revealed that in the chaos following the conflict, there will be those who blame believers for what has happened. He showed me that in China specifically, there will be a narrative pushed by some authorities that foreign religious influences, meaning Christianity, contributed to the disaster, that believers are fifth columnists who undermined national unity. He revealed that this will lead to active persecution even in the midst of the larger crisis. He showed me believers being rounded up, accused, imprisoned, or worse. He showed me underground churches being raided, not just by local police but by military units seeking scapegoats for the anger and fear of the population. But he also showed me something beautiful. He revealed that in this persecution, his church will shine with a light that cannot be hidden. He showed me believers sharing their meager supplies with persecutors. He showed me Christians caring for the sick and wounded even at great risk to themselves. He showed me communities of faith becoming havens of hope in a dark world, and he showed me that this witness will lead many to salvation even as others reject it violently. He told me that believers must be prepared for this persecution, must understand that following him may cost everything, just as it cost my parents so much in their generation. He said that this is not punishment but privilege, the honor of sharing in his sufferings. He revealed that those who endure to the end will see his glory in ways that others cannot imagine. After he had shown me all these things, after he had revealed the warnings and the timeline and the specific guidance, he looked at me with eyes full of both grief and determination. He told me that I was being sent back. He said that my time had not yet come, that I had work to do, people to warn, a testimony to bear. He showed me that the visions I had seen were not just for me but for all who would listen. He told me to share what I had learned, to warn believers in cities to relocate, to explain the timeline of nuclear fallout, to reveal the false safety of designated zones, to prepare people for infrastructure collapse and persecution. He also told me something I did not expect. He said that even though these things are coming, even though the conflict is on the horizon, there is still time for people to turn to him. He showed me that the coming disaster is not primarily about judgment but about awakening, a final call to a world that has ignored him for too long. He revealed that in the darkness to come, more people will turn to him than in years of peaceful prosperity. He told me to emphasize this, that the warnings are not meant to create fear but to create preparation, not to drive people to despair but to drive them to him. He said that those who trust in him, who follow his leading, who prepare as he directs, will not only survive but thrive as lights in the darkness. Then, before I could ask him anything more, I felt a violent pull, as if I were being yanked backward at tremendous speed. The light around him began to fade. I wanted to stay, wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but I had no control. The darkness rushed back in, and then I gasped and opened my eyes to see the worried faces of my fellow soldiers hovering over me. Someone was doing chest compressions. Someone else was holding an oxygen mask to my face. The firelight flickered on the cave walls. I was back. They told me later that I had been dead for 7 minutes. No heartbeat. No breathing. They had been performing CPR continuously, refusing to give up, and just when they were beginning to lose hope, my heart suddenly started beating again. The medic called it a miracle. I knew it was exactly that. The blizzard eventually passed. We were rescued and returned to base. I spent a week in the hospital under observation. The doctors could find nothing wrong with me physically, which they said was remarkable given how long my heart had stopped. They attributed my survival to the cold, which can sometimes preserve brain function during cardiac arrest. I did not argue with them. But I knew the truth. I had been given a gift, a warning, a commission. And now I had to figure out how to fulfill it. If you are reading this, wherever you are, please hear what I am saying. The warnings I received were not just for believers in China. They are universal principles for surviving what is coming. Whether you live in Beijing or New York, Tokyo or London, the same physics apply. Nuclear weapons do not care about nationality. Fallout does not distinguish between political systems. If you live in a major city, consider leaving now while you can. Find a small town or rural community, preferably far from military installations and far from the coast. Bring skills to contribute. Integrate humbly. Prepare practically. Understand the timeline of nuclear fallout. Know that the first hour is critical. Know that basements are traps. Know that your phone will lie to you. Know that water matters more than food. Know that the 30-minute window after the blast is when most preventable deaths occur. Do not trust official evacuation orders to designated safe zones. These will become death traps. Instead, shelter in place if you are in a safe location, or move to small, unremarkable places that will be overlooked. Prepare for infrastructure collapse. Have the means to survive without electricity, without running water, without modern conveniences. Store food, water, medical supplies, tools. Learn practical skills. Most importantly, turn to Jesus Christ if you have not already. All the preparation in the world means nothing if you do not know the one who holds your eternal destiny in his hands. The coming disaster is temporary. Eternity is forever. Make sure you are ready not just to survive the conflict, but to stand before God with confidence when your time comes. I was given 7 minutes beyond the veil to see what is coming and to bring back this warning. I am sharing it because I believe God, in His mercy, wants His people to be prepared. I do not claim to know all things. I am just a soldier who died and was sent back with a message. What you do with this message is between you and God. I have delivered it. The rest is up to you. The clock is ticking. The signs are everywhere. The conflict is coming sooner than most people think. May God grant us all the wisdom to prepare, the courage to act, and the faith to trust Him through whatever comes. Lieutenant Chen Wei, People's Liberation Army, January 2026. For those who have ears to hear, let them hear.